The supervisor finished outlining the job. It's routine, well understood, nothing unusual. He looks around the room and asks, "Any questions?" A few nods. All good. Sounds clear. No one speaks up. No concerns raised. No alternative views. No challenge. And within minutes, the meeting is over, the team moves on, and the job begins. Not because the plan was perfect, not because there were no risks, not because everyone fully understood every detail, but because everyone agreed too quickly. This is the agreement problem, and it affects every single team. Last episode, we talked about how teams stop seeing risk. Today, we go a step further, how teams stop challenging risk, even when they see it. This is the safety edge. Welcome back to the Safety Edge podcast, where safety leaders sharpen their edge. I'm Charles Edgar, your safety leadership coach. In this podcast, we explore the real dilemmas safety leaders face on site and in the workplace. Not textbook examples, not perfect scenarios, but the challenging, uncomfortable human moments when there is no obvious right answer and the pressure is real. There's something powerful about agreement. It feels efficient. It feels aligned. It feels like progress. When everyone nods, we assume we're on the same page. But here's what psychology tells us. Agreement is not always a sign of clarity. Sometimes it's a sign of conformity. Psychologists call this groupthink, a pattern where the desires for harmony or consensus overrides critical thinking. People don't challenge ideas, not because they agree, but because they don't want to disrupt the group. Another layer is authority bias. When someone in a position of authority speaks first, it shapes how others think, not intentionally, but subtly. The brain starts to align before it starts to analyze. And then there's social proof. If everyone else seems comfortable, we assume things must be fine, even if something feels off. Now combine all three: groupthink, authority bias, and social proof, and you get a powerful dynamic. A room full of capable, experienced people who stop thinking independently, not because they lack competence, but because the environment silently rewards agreement. And in high-risk environments, that's where problems begin. Picture this. You are standing in a pre-job briefing. The supervisor walks through the plan, step by step, clear, structured, and confident. Everyone listens. No interruptions, no questions. But as you look around, you notice something subtle. One operator hesitates. Another glances at a colleague, flips through the procedure, then closes it. Small signals, easy to miss. The supervisor finishes. Any concerns? Silence. Then someone says, "Looks good," and just like that, it's done. But here's what you didn't hear. The doubt that wasn't voiced. The assumption that wasn't challenged. The risk that wasn't explored. Individually, these moments seem insignificant, but together they form a pattern of silent agreement, a pattern where alignment replaces thinking, a pattern where the team moves forward without fully testing the plan. And the most uncomfortable part, you can't point to one person and say you made the wrong decision because everyone agreed. The question isn't who made the mistake. The question is, how did the team stop challenging the plan? Because when agreement becomes automatic, critical thinking disappears. And that is the dilemma. Why is this a dilemma? This is a dilemma because alignment looks like success. You see a team that is coordinated, respectful, and efficient. No conflict, no friction, no delays. Everything appears right. But underneath that alignment, there may be untested assumptions, unspoken concerns, missed perspectives. And if you challenge the team, you risk slowing things down, creating discomfort, being seen as disruptive, questioning their competence. But if you don't challenge the team, you risk decisions going untested, weak signals being ignored, overconfidence taking hold, and small risk compounding over time. So you are caught between two tensions: preserve the alignment or introduce friction. And here's the reality: without friction, there is no real thinking. So what do most safety leaders do? Most safety leaders accept the alignment. They assume no questions means clarity. They are experienced. They know what they are doing. I don't want to overcomplicate this. Sometimes they even reinforce it. Good, everyone's aligned. Let's proceed. Or they wait. If there's an issue, it will come up later. I'll address it during execution if required. And in some cases, they rely on compliance. They say things like, let's just make sure we follow the procedure. But here's the problem. Agreement doesn't guarantee understanding. Silence doesn't confirm safety. And compliance doesn't replace thinking. So the team moves on, aligned and potentially exposed. Effective safety leaders don't just seek alignment, they create thinking. First, they slow down agreement. When everybody agrees too quickly, they pause. They treat fast agreement as a signal, not success. 2, they speak last. They resist the urge to go first because they know the first voice shapes the room. By speaking last, they allow independent thinking to surface. 3, they invite challenge. They ask, who sees this differently? What could go wrong here? If this fails, where will it fail first? These questions don't create conflict, they create clarity. 4, they normalize disagreement. They make it safe to challenge. They reinforce. Different perspectives makes us stronger. Not slower, not weaker, stronger. 5, they turn meetings into thinking spaces, not just coordination spaces, because safety isn't built on agreement, it's built on tested decisions. And when thinking becomes visible, risk becomes manageable. Now let's take that mindset into the field and see it from the coaching lens. I invite you to listen carefully to this conversation between a lifting supervisor and his team just before a critical lifting operation in the plant.
All right, team. Same plan as yesterday. Lift path is clear. Rigging setup unchanged. Any questions?
Everything looks good to me.
Yeah, all clear for me. Piece of cake.
And as a leader, you observe and then you say, let me ask something. What's different today?
Nothing really. Same setup as far as I can see.
You pause and then you ask again, same setup or same assumptions? You scan the room and you say, I'm noticing a few of you are quiet. Let's hear from you. You point gently to one of them. Hey, you've been on the tagline yesterday. What did you see?
The wind's a bit stronger today.
Okay, stronger wind means what for the load?
Potential swing. Harder to control on the tagline.
Good, that matters. You turn to the other operator. You were spotting the blind side yesterday. Is there anything different today?
Visibility's worse today. Dust and glare. Could lose sight of the load at certain points.
So we have blind spots increasing. What's the risk there?
Load could drift without being corrected early.
Exactly. You pause for a while, and then you continue. What about the rigging? Same as yesterday?
Same configuration, but the slings took some load yesterday. Haven't rechecked tension since.
So what's the risk?
If there's uneven tension, could shift the load or stress a weak point.
And the worst case?
Could lead to rigging failure, I guess?
And there's a brief silence. Good. Now we are thinking. So let me ask again. If this goes wrong, where will it fail first?
During initial lift. If the load starts swinging, I think.
Or mid-path, when we lose visibility.
Positioning near the set-down point, with wind and time pressure.
Exactly. Not because the plan is wrong, but because we hadn't fully challenged it. At this point, the supervisor comes in.
All right, team, let's reset and tighten controls. Taglines, double-check positioning and control. Communication, clear signals, confirm before movement. Blind spots, assign dedicated spotters. Rigging, re-inspect before lift. And if anything feels off, stop the job. Let's make sure this lift is not just aligned, but truly safe. Check your rigging, your signals, and your surroundings. Every detail matters before we move.
Now let's examine what just happened in the room. The operators were almost falling over themselves to agree with the supervisor. This is a classic example of authority bias, where people unconsciously align with those in authority, often without fully evaluating the situation. When the first operator agreed, the others simply followed, reflecting a false sense of consensus, not from critical thinking, but from a reluctance to disrupt the harmony in the room, especially when everyone else appeared comfortable. This is a typical example of groupthink reinforced by social proof. The moment the safety leader challenged the team's assumption, one operator initially tried to reinforce the agreement. Sensing the hesitation in the room, the leader directed the question to a previously silent operator. That simple shift created space for concerns to surface, and once they did, others began to find their voice. This simple approach broke the lull in the room. The safety leader could have stayed quiet and gone along, but instead chose to act decisively. This is what happens when we slow down agreement. We don't create problems, we reveal them. Now let's examine the key takeaways from this episode. 1. Fast agreement can hide risk. When everyone agrees too quickly, it often means the plan hasn't been fully challenged. 2. Group dynamics shape how we think. Authority, conformity, and social proof can quietly limit critical thinking without anyone even realizing it. 3. Silence is not clarity. No questions doesn't always mean understanding. Sometimes it means hesitation or even unspoken doubt. 4. Friction creates safety. Not conflict, but constructive challenge. That's where better decisions are made. 5. Curiosity is what brings it all together. Simple questions like, what are we missing? What's different today? Who sees this differently? These questions interrupt automatic agreement. They make thinking visible. They bring hidden risk back into focus. Because the goal isn't just alignment, it's understanding. And when you create space for thinking, when you challenge what seems obvious, when you turn agreement into exploration, you don't just make better decisions, you make safer decisions. Decisions grounded in reality, not one where people just blindly agree to, but one where diverse perspectives were considered. That moment where voices are heard, assumptions are tested, perspectives collide, thinking becomes intentional, and decisions are collective. That is the edge. Today, we explored the psychology of agreement, groupthink, authority bias, and social proof. And we learned that alignment can sometimes be an illusion. Not all agreements are dangerous, but untested agreements are potentially risky. So the next time everyone agrees quickly, don't move faster, slow down, ask one more question. Create one more moment of doubt, because that moment might reveal the risk no one else saw. If this episode resonates with you, share it with your team. Start your next meeting with this question. What are we missing? That single question can change everything. Don't miss the next episode of Season 3, where we continue to explore expertise, authority, and group dynamics that shape safety. While here, make sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to invite a friend or colleague to listen along with you. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Safety Edge podcast. I'm Charles Edgar, your safety leadership coach. And until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and keep sharpening your edge. Bye for now.
Brought to you by the Safety Edge platform, an independent leadership and safety learning platform, building leadership capacity, one conversation at a time. Find us wherever you get your podcasts